5 years after the epic conclusion of Commander Shepard's story, Mass Effect Andromeda set out to drive the franchise in a completely new direction with the Andromeda Initiative. Unfortunately, Andromeda failed to meet most fans' expectations upon its release. Now, after completing the original trilogy, I'm jumping back into Andromeda to see if this entry truly lies at the bottom of the franchise, or if it was just being judged too harshly. Before I jump in, if you like watching me play through entire video game franchises and ranking the games along the way, then I invite you to head over to my channel, Tresonator, and subscribe. And if you want to watch me play in real time, then you can catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Tresonator. All streams are in glorious ultra-wide 21:9, so there's nothing blocking the gameplay. Now enough of all that, let's get on with the review. Mass Effect Andromeda was released on March 21st, 2017 for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. It was developed by BioWare and published by EA. In contrast to the original trilogy, which was spearheaded by BioWare's Edmonton studio, Mass Effect Andromeda was handled by a new team out of Montreal. This was done so that Edmonton can focus on a new IP, later revealed to be Anthem. We all know how that turned out. Casey Hudson, who directed the original trilogy, was promoted to the role of executive producer before leaving the company during production in 2014. In general, the game's development was plagued by internal instability, with game's initial director, lead writer, senior editor, and other members of its leadership team all departing during the production of the game. The game credits Mass Effect 2 and 3 writer Mac Walters as the director, with John Dombrow, Kathleen Rootsert, and Chris Scherf credited as writers. The development team attempted to create something that felt fresh and new to the franchise, while still taking elements from past games, such as the ability to drive a vehicle similar to the Mako from Mass Effect 1, or the heavy use of loyalty missions taken from Mass Effect 2. Still, upon its release, it didn't really meet the expectations that fans were anticipating. The main plot of the game focuses on the Andromeda Initiative, a massive migration of races from the Milky Way to the Andromeda Galaxy in the name of exploration and discovery. The 4 Citadel Council races, the Asari, the Solarians, the Turians, and the humans, send around 20,000 citizens each, plus a large number of Krogan, on a one-way 600-plus year trip to the Helios cluster in the Andromeda Galaxy. Each race sends its own sleeper ship called an Ark to the galaxy, and each Ark has one leader identified as their Pathfinder. A space station called the Nexus was also created and sent to Andromeda to act as a central hub for all arriving Milky Way galaxy races. The initiative was started in collaboration by billionaire Jen Garson, veteran Systems Alliance soldier and scientist Alec Ryder, and a mysterious benefactor. The ships set off from the Milky Way galaxy somewhere between the events of Mass Effect 2 and 3 and arrive in Andromeda after a 638-year-long journey. The player takes control of either Scott or Sarah Ryder, the son or daughter of human Pathfinder Alec Ryder. When the player awakens out of stasis, it is revealed that the arrival in the new galaxy didn't go so smoothly. The human Ark hit a dark energy cloud called the Scourge, which knocked out the Ark's power and put your sibling in a coma. While trying to figure out just what the hell went wrong, the player accompanies their father on a mission to one of the planets thought to be a golden world of Andromeda. Instead, they find nothing but a toxic atmosphere. During the mission, your helmet becomes cracked and your father sacrifices himself so that you can live. In his last actions, Alec Ryder transfers the title of Pathfinder to the player and merges a helpful AI named Sam into your consciousness.
Initiating transfer.
The game really picks up after this, and you're tasked with a number of important assignments if this whole live in Andromeda thing is going to work out. The most important assignments include finding the Nexus and other Arks which all appear to have also been affected by the Scourge, making each planet habitable for the citizens of the Milky Way using ancient technology called Remnant Tech, and fighting off a hostile race known as the Ket, who are attempting to unlock the secrets of the Remnant technology. You'll also be able to unlock some of your father's memories via the SAM implant in your head. This provides elaborate backstory and character development for the protagonist. Along your way, you'll meet a new friendly race of aliens named the Angara, who have also been battling the Ket for some time. An Angaran named Jal joins your crew as a companion. The rest of your companions in this game aren't terrible, well, most of them anyway, but they are kind of forgettable. I wouldn't mind seeing some of them pop up in a future Mass Effect game though. The story as a whole is also actually kind of forgettable. Again, it's not terrible, but the writing and definitely pacing took a hit when comparing to the original trilogy. I was intrigued by the story when it first started, but as more of the plot unfolds, it becomes more cliche and at times just outright boring. This could also be because of how often the game's tasks make you trek across the galaxy in order to unlock a couple minutes worth of dialogue, which could have been an email. Again, really bad pacing. And upon beating the game, there are a ton of unanswered questions and unfinished story arcs. It's clear that BioWare had planned to release direct sequels to Andromeda, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen, not anytime soon at least. Maybe we'll get these answers in the next proper Mass Effect game. The graphics in this game are fantastic. Even as I play today, 5 years after release, the game still holds in comparison to new releases. The environments, the atmosphere, and most of the game models look great. Where the visuals fail dramatically is in the facial features of most of the alien species. They all look the same, and they don't look good. Every Asari character, with the exception of PB, seems to have a much fuller, fatter face. They look weird. Asari are supposed to be the most beautiful race in the Milky Way, and they definitely don't look like it in this game. It kind of takes me out of the immersion that the original trilogy succeeded in so well. Still, if you can look past these facial features, it is clear that Andromeda is still a beautiful game. There are some really incredible aspects of Mass Effect Andromeda's gameplay, and then there are some really bothersome aspects as well. We'll start with the good and then lead into the bad. The progression system, combat, and crafting system are by far the bread and butter of Mass Effect Andromeda. In fact, they actually surpass the entire original trilogy, in my opinion, and it's not even close. Instead of choosing a class at the beginning of the game, you can now decide where you want your progress to go with each level up. You can assign your ability points towards combat, biotic, or tech-based powers. You can choose to go heavily into one class or balance between 2 or 3. Unfortunately, you can only assign 3 different abilities to your character at once, meaning you can have a lot of different builds to play with depending on what you're trying to achieve. The one downside to this is it can almost be too overwhelming with so many different options to choose from. Combat flows better than it ever has in Andromeda. Ryder automatically takes cover when running up behind an object, and a new dodging and jumping system has been added to keep up with modern, action-oriented AAA games. You can no longer control your squad's special abilities in combat. They will now do this on their own. That is somewhat of a disappointment, but I believe BioWare added this to escape the constant stop-and-go combat that we had in the first 3 games. The combat system still holds up against new games even today, years after its release. If anything from Andromeda makes it to the next Mass Effect game, I hope it's this. Crafting is great, but like progression, can also be overwhelming. Now players can research blueprints for weapons, armor, and augments. Augments can be added to your weapons and armor when crafting to give them new abilities. Now, you can make your assault rifle fire a constant laser or give your pistol sticky grenade ammo. You can easily get lost in this game for hours from just upgrading your character, creating new loadouts, and crafting equipment. It's clear that BioWare put the majority of their focus in combat and character progression of the game. Dialogue decisions, a staple of the Mass Effect franchise, return, but this time with an upgrade. Instead of clear Paragon, Renegade, neutral options from the original trilogy, the character is presented with up to 4 more options: emotional, casual, logical, and professional dialogue. I actually prefer this over the OG choices because they are more reactionary than choosing between a nice or rude option. However, most of the actions and decisions you make in this game don't seem to have that big of an impact to the greater story, at least not as much as they did in the original trilogy. Now let's talk about the things that I disliked about Andromeda's gameplay, and boy, where do I start? The game's continuity really bothered me. Every planet has the same creatures on them. It makes 0 sense why one planet with an icy climate would have the same wildlife as a desert planet halfway across the cluster. It was a common occurrence that I just found myself getting mad at after landing on every new planet. Also, almost every alien computer screen in Andromeda has human numbers and letters on it. I found a bunch of this tech in Ket and Angaran bases. Did the dev team just not pay attention to detail on this one? Because that's what it feels like. The next thing that comes to mind is enemy variety, or lack thereof. Most battles are fought between the Ket or the Remnant, with occasional scuffles between outcasts, Rokar raiders, or wildlife. But regardless of who you are fighting, the game seems to throw the same kind of enemies at you during each battle, with almost no bosses. In fact, the best fights in the game were all the Remnant architects, and most of them are only obtained at the end of side missions, which actually brings me to my next gripe. planet hopping to complete missions. The entire game is loaded with fetch quests and planet hopping that made me increasingly frustrated the longer I played. Oftentimes, I would complete a side mission on a planet, return to my ship, and then immediately receive an email telling me to return to the planet that I just left. The game also gave me missions to meet someone halfway across the galaxy, so I could simply view a 3-minute cutscene only to travel back across the galaxy to finish the mission. Again, talk about a task that could have been an email. This game does this an overwhelmingly amount of time, and it doesn't let up. And all of this contributes to the game's final runtime. You can easily surpass most of this and finish the game in under 20 hours or so if you stick only to the main missions. But missions like finding the other arcs, making the planets habitable, unlocking your father's memories, and squad loyalty missions all contribute to the greater story of Andromeda. And if you're looking to complete all of them, it will probably take you around 50 hours. Because of the game's lack of enemy variety and repetitiveness, this feels like a huge chore to complete after spending some time with the game. Now, there are a few other gameplay aspects that I'm not going to dive into. The game is constantly throwing new things to unlock at you, like viability points to open new cryopods, or send out Apex squads to complete side missions. All of this sounds cool, but in my opinion, it just contributes to making the game even more bloated and overwhelming. I didn't touch the multiplayer mode since I am reviewing this in 2022, and I find it hard to believe that people are still playing Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer 5 years after its release. So overall, the combat gameplay, and I even think the dialogue options, are a step in the right direction for Mass Effect, but because of how drawn out and fetch questy the game is, it left kind of a bad taste in my mouth at the end. Now, I'm not going to lie, during the first 5 to 10 hours of playing Mass Effect Andromeda, I seriously considered ranking this over Mass Effect 1. The gameplay is fluid and a lot of fun at first, and the progression and crafting system helped bring the franchise to modern times. However, as I continued to play 20, 30, 40 hours into the game, I found myself getting bored with the constant planet hopping and fetch quests the game threw at me. The lack of enemy and wildlife variety bothered me a lot, and the characters and species just didn't stand out the way they did in the original trilogy. It almost feels like this game has no heart in it, and what starts off as a fun new experience in the franchise finishes as a long, tedious grindfest. I don't think Andromeda is necessarily a bad game. In fact, if they took out a bunch of the unnecessary side missions and planet hopping, I think this game would work better. But because of all that I have mentioned, Mass Effect Andromeda is going to have to go at the bottom of my list. So, with that, my current ranking of the Mass Effect franchise is as follows. Number 1, Mass Effect 2. Number 2, Mass Effect 3. Number 3, Mass Effect. And number 4, Mass Effect Andromeda. Upon release of the next Mass Effect game, I will be playing through it on my Twitch channel, and upon completion, I will rank that up against the rest of the franchise, so be sure to check back when that happens. If you like this video, it would mean a great deal to me if you could give it a big thumbs up, and let me know where Mass Effect Andromeda sits in your rankings of the Mass Effect franchise. And again, if you want to see me play through entire video game franchises and rank them along the way, then head on over to my channel, Tresnator, and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.